When I was a kid, I was into a lot of different video game franchises. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, a little bit of Mario, the tiniest, most microscopic amount of Sonic, and who could forget 7 Granddad? I was never the most epicest of gamers, but I've definitely played my fair share of games that have gone on to become beloved cult classics. Like Crash of the Titans.
At long last, the world will have a way to recycle butter! Hey.
As everyone knows, Mario and Sonic have gone on to become the 2 biggest icons in the gaming stratosphere, both of which having new releases to this day. And despite Crash and Spyro becoming more of a nostalgia fest for millennials, both of them have come back into the limelight with incredible ground-up remakes of their original trilogies. Heck, Crash even got an entirely new game, which has quickly become the best game in the entire franchise. And I think it's best we don't talk about Crash Team Rumble. But there was one video game franchise that I had a pretty keen fondness for. He was this weirdly lanky character who lacked any sort of limbs, who quickly became a beloved icon of the late 90s and early 2000s, even starring in a pretty fantastic 3D platformer. I think it's pretty safe to assume we all know who I'm talking about here. That's right, I'm talking about Janitor Ed, star of Tonic Trouble. I'm actually talking about Rayman, if you couldn't tell.
This is Rayman. This is a man called Ray.
Rayman once was a character that was beloved by all. He was Ubisoft's biggest moneymaker, but after the Rabbids showed up and ruined everybody's fun, Rayman slowly faded into obscurity until Ubisoft themselves forgot about him. But now, I would be extremely surprised if you had absolutely no idea who this guy was. Despite not getting a single new entry in the mainline Rayman franchise in about a decade, Rayman's become a huge talking point recently for seemingly random reasons. People have been coming out of the woodwork saying how much they love this character, just being happy that Ubisoft is acknowledging his existence. So I thought it'd be fun to explore Rayman's legacy, come to the bottom of why he's getting so much attention now, and express a personal thought of mine. It's a thing I've been mulling over for the past couple of years now, and I feel it's finally relevant enough to actually express in a full video. That thought is, Rayman deserves a new game. The original Rayman game was a 2D platformer released in 1995 for the Atari Jaguar, Sega Saturn, and Sony PlayStation. It follows Rayman as he is thrust into action when the evil Mr. Dark
Steals the great Protoon and defeats Spatilla the Fairy as she tries to protect it.
This game's definitely a product of its time. The gameplay starts off pretty good, but quickly becomes extremely hard, focusing more on memorization and quick reaction times rather than having fun. As a whole, the game is viewed in a more negative light nowadays for this very reason. But back then, pretty much every game was balls to the walls unfairly difficult, so naturally, it was an immediate slam dunk. It got high review scores all over, even winning the Game of the Month award from Electronic Gaming Monthly. People all over the world love this game. It's actually kind of jarring going from current reviews of the game to reviews of the game when it came out. Like, here's a more recent review from NitroRad.
Oh my god, I hate these bug guys. I can rarely seem to get past them without taking a hit, and you gotta be kidding me, there's 2 of them!
And now here's a little excerpt of Electronic Gaming Monthly's review of the game.
There are tons of techniques and loads of gameplay that complement the cool sounds and awesome eye candy. At first you may think it's all look and no play. Wrong. This is one of the freshest side scrollers in a while. Try it, you'll like it.
And here's Cat Icarus.
My god, the difficulty. I'm not just saying this for the sake of whinging or anything, I'm telling you that I've been playing this game for 16 years and for the life of me I can never pass Picture City without losing every last continue I have, therefore making my save game useless and needing to start from the beginning again.
Now here's Next Generation's review.
With its vast color palette, detailed sound effects, and overall playability, there is nothing about Rayman for the Jaguar that falls below the mark of excellent.
It's interesting how drastically the gaming industry has changed over the years. Anyway, yeah, Rayman was a hit, so Ubisoft, naturally realizing they struck gold, immediately started milking this guy. After Rayman's rousing success, Ubisoft released Rayman Designer, which featured 24 brand new and even harder levels, and a level editor akin to the Mario makers we have now. Then, in 1997, we got Rayman Gold, which was just the original Rayman bundled with Rayman Designer. Rayman by His Fans was then released, which was a compilation of 100 fan-made levels that were uploaded to the Ubisoft website for a level designing contest they were holding. Then, in 1998, a game called Rayman Forever was released, which contained Rayman, Rayman Designer, Rayman by His Fans, and a fridge magnet. Then we got Rayman Fun Pack, which included Rayman, Rayman Designer, Rayman by His Fans, English with Rayman, and the making of Rayman 2. Then there's Rayman Collector, which included Rayman, Rayman Designer, Rayman by His Fans, and Rayman 60 levels, which was an expansion that was also included in Rayman 100 levels, which also featured Rayman by His Fans. The caveat being that that Rayman 100 levels was only released in the Netherlands. I guess before Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft used Rayman as their main cash cow, milking and milking until it finally ran dry in 1999. Then Rayman 2 was finally released. Rayman 2 The Great Escape might be the one game in the franchise I know next to nothing about. Rayman 2 takes the rather bare bones world of the original Rayman and adds lore. This game takes place in the Glade of Dreams, a nice peaceful place that has been invaded and conquered by an armada of interstellar robo-pirates, led by Admiral Razorbeard. Rayman 2 actually goes with the bold choice of beginning in media res, as we first see Rayman and his friend Glowbox getting captured and detained by Razorbeard after an explosion that destroys the primordial core, which shatters into 1,000 yellow lums and also strips Rayman of his powers. When he's given a silver lum from Glowbox, Rayman then makes his escape to find Lee the Fairy, in the hopes that she can help him stop Razorbeard and save the Glade of Dreams. You see, I wasn't joking when I said lore. The last game's plot can be summarized in a single sentence. This one actually took me 4 sentences. From here on out, the Glade of Dreams is now the main setting of the franchise. It's not consistent, though. Like, it's still the Glade of Dreams, but it looks different every single time. Rayman 2, unlike the original Rayman, is a 3D platformer with a really big focus on exploration and platforming, and a much smaller focus on combat encounters. Before working on the video, I've never played it before, so I decided to check it out so I could give like some very brief thoughts about it, and it's actually a lot of fun. Typically, combat in 3D platformers blows fat chunks, Sonic Unleashed being the most popular example, but Rayman 2 manages to make it work. The reason it works is because it's entirely projectile based, having you jump around and avoid oncoming fire whilst firing back yourself. The game seemingly combines the platforming gameplay and combat gameplay in a way I've never seen before, and plenty of people seem to agree with this game getting 9 out of 10s and 5 stars all over the place. It was even nominated for Game of the Year and was runner-up for Best Platforming Game, second only to the GOAT, Conker's Bad Fur Day. People praised this game for its vibrant and colorful graphics, unique art design, beautiful soundtrack, more natural and less brutal difficulty curve, and addictive gameplay. Unlike the original Rayman, Rayman 2 is still viewed highly to this day. Some even consider it to be one of the best 3D platformers ever created, up there with Mario 64, only ever really getting criticisms for its jarring tonal whiplash compared to the original game. Rayman 2 features a much more melancholic tone than the original. It has an air of despair, hopelessness, and anguish. The world has been conquered by these evil pirate dudes, kidnapping and killing anybody who threatens to stop them. I can understand why people didn't like this, and I'm glad it didn't stick, but I really do like the plot of this game. The melancholic tone is really jarring, but it's not bad by any means. It's just an example of game devs trying something new and it not panning out, which happens all of the time. I mean, I'm a Sonic fan. The Sonic devs are always experimenting and it never works, so, you know. Either way, despite the depressing tone, people still adored this game, to the point where it also got a bunch of re-releases. Not as many as the original one, but this time we got Rayman DS and 3D, which were ports of Rayman 2 to the DS and 3DS respectively. There's the GBA version of Rayman 2, which has no real connection to Rayman 2 whatsoever, it's just kind of its own thing. Then there was Rayman Revolution, which was an updated remake of Rayman 2 released on the PlayStation 2, which was also featured as a classic game on the PlayStation 3. This is all the re-releases I could find, but who knows, maybe I forgot Rayman 2 for the Children, which removes all the dark and freaky imagery from the game. At the time, Rayman was so popular, he even got a couple of spin-offs like Rayman Arena and Rayman Kart, and even a less than stellar venture into television. The show lasted 4 episodes.
Look at the bright side. Maybe he'll actually find something wrong with you.
Anyway, yeah, Rayman 2 was another smash hit, so naturally, about 3 years later, we got Rayman 3, baby! Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc, unlike Rayman 2, is a game I have a lot of experience with. This is the Rayman game I grew up on, so naturally, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Rayman 3 goes back to the much more lighthearted and wacky tone of the original Rayman, which I think was for the best. I mean, like, I liked the direction the second game went in, but, like, can you imagine this guy being serious? Because I can't. Rayman 3 follows Rayman and this little mentor fairy guy named Murphy as they go on a quest to stop this evil black lum named Andre from turning red lums into hoodlums and taking over the Glade of Dreams. That is, until Glowbox accidentally swallows Andre, so Rayman and Glowbox must now seek out a doctor who can remove Andre from Glowbox's stomach. I am not making any of this up. I love the wacky direction this game goes in. It doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever, and it is hilarious. This game is full of non-stop rapid-fire jokes, and it works constantly. This game has so many good bits. Like, there's a level where the characters are supposed to be taking a shortcut to get to the doctor as soon as possible, despite it being the longest level in the game. Then we got bits like Murphy reading directly from the game's manual as the tutorial, the language flags, just the flags, and the various doctors you visit playing Glowbox as a different instrument each time. This game is hilarious. As for the gameplay, it's pretty similar to Rayman 2, the main difference being level design and enemy types. Hoodlum Havoc is kind of like the Crash Bandicoot to the Great Escape's Mario 64. The levels are a lot more linear, and have you focus on getting from point A to point B, as opposed to exploring and finding things. Though, despite all these positives, the game can genuinely be unfair in some cases. Like, the final level is awful. I cannot stand that level, dude. I think I personally like Hoodlum Havoc more than most people because of my nostalgia for it. But if I were to look at it objectively, I think it's a worse game than The Great Escape, as you can see from the reviews it's got. The highest review that Hoodlum Havoc got was an 83, with the lowest being a 69.
Nice on!
Still no overall bad reviews. The game was still adored by many, it just wasn't as well received as The Great Escape. Despite this, it still sold really well, and further cemented Rayman's status as a platforming icon. Rayman Raving Rabbids marks the start of Rayman's decline in popularity. From here on out, Rayman will slowly yet consistently become less of a focus in the games, as he has now been replaced as the cash cow by the Rabbids. Rayman Raving Rabbids follows Rayman as he's been captured by the Rabbids, and is forced to compete in a series of humiliating minigames against Rabbids purely for their twisted amusement, all the while gathering plungers to create a makeshift ladder to escape through a window in his jail cell. Now, this game isn't actually bad per se, people mainly hate it because of what came after it. For the longest time, I saw people crapping on this game because of what it spawned, so I just assumed it was a genuinely bad game. But a couple of months ago, I picked it up so I could make a now scrapped video about it, and actually had a lot of fun. When the game was in development, it was actually planned to be a semi-open world beat-em-up style game, having you fight an armada of enraged Rabbids who were threatening the Glade of Dreams. I think it's safe to say that everybody would have preferred if we got that instead, but we got this. Now, what we got here wasn't terrible. Like, Rayman Raving Rabbids is a pretty decent party game that I'd gladly play with my friends, but holy crap, the cultural phenomenon that spawned from this game was astronomical. The Rabbids quickly grew in popularity. They were all over the place. There's a reason they're called the Minions before the Minions. They came out with game after game after game after terrible TV show after game after game. It was insane. The Rabbids were everywhere for a good solid 8 or 9 years before they just kind of stopped making Rabbid games. After Rayman Raving Rabbids came out, the Rabbids slowly took over the franchise, pushing Rayman further and further into the background. I think it's funny how you can literally see Rayman's name get progressively smaller and smaller in the game's logos until it just straight up disappears. You know what? Just for funsies, how about we do a little rapid-fire lightning round of Rabbid games? Just list them off real quick, maybe do a little summary of the plot. So first, we have Rayman Raving Rabbids, the game we just covered. Next, there's Rayman Raving Rabbids 2, which follows Rayman as he infiltrates the Rabbids' hideout in an attempt to stop them from taking over the Earth. I like the costume he wears to infiltrate the Rabbids, it's really funny looking. Here, we have Rayman Raving Rabbids TV Party. The Rabbids have been fused with Rayman's TV, so he attempts to get them out through a series of wacky scenarios while you play wacky minigames. There's Rabbids Go Home, which is an action-adventure game that has you playing as Rabbids running amok and collecting junk to build a tower so they can get to the moon. There's Rabbids Lab, which was a WiiWare exclusive where you can mess with a Rabbid that's trapped inside of your Wii remote. Raving Rabbids Travel in Time, which is another party game where the minigames are themed around time travel. Rabbids Go Phone and Rabbids Go Phone Again, which are just interactive buddy but with Rabbids. Raving Rabbids Alive and Kicking, which is a Connect game. Raving Rabbids Party Collection featuring Rayman. Rabbids Land, a Mario Party knockoff. Rabbids Rumble, a turn-based strategy game. Rabbids Big Bang, another party game featuring the Rabbids going to space. Rabbids Invasion, the interactive TV show. Rabbids Heroes, and finally, Rabbid Crazy Rush. You can hear my voice dying because of how many Rabbid games there are that I had to list off. There are a couple more, but for time and brevity's sake, I'm not gonna mention them because we're gonna talk about them later. This is way too many games for a single franchise where everything is built off of stupid slapstick humor. And most of the games are the same thing! Bland, boring party games with extremely bare bones and easy minigames. I'm honestly surprised that they kept going for so long, because even the Rabbids were dying out. Like, I highly doubt anybody watched Rabbids Invasion, and who even remembers Rabbid Heroes or Crazy Rush? Nobody cared about the Rabbids anymore, but they just wouldn't stop. Also, this is kinda stupid, but I really don't like how they torment Rayman in all of the games that he's in. Like, in Rayman Raving Rabbids, it was whatever. Like, he made it out safely in the end, and Rabbids 2 had him disguised as a rabbid, so the Rabbids weren't tormenting him the whole time. But in TV Party, they torture him constantly from start to finish. I get that it's all for comedy's sake, and some of these cutscenes are kind of funny, but, like, it just feels gross. It feels like Ubisoft is saying that they legit do not care about this character anymore. Maybe I'm being acoustic here, but it really does not sit right with me. It seems like Ubisoft doesn't want anything to do with this guy anymore, despite him arguably being their most treasured IP. For a very long time, it felt this way, as we went years without a new installment in the Rayman franchise, until the year 2011, when we finally got a new Rayman game.
Long ago, the primordial forest, deep and mysterious, witnessed the birth of a man. A vegetable. No. A thingamajig. Conjured from the magnificent moonbeams of the second summer solstice, woven together by us, the nymphs, destined to preserve the equilibrium of the sacred universe, the one we call Rayman, proved himself to be absolutely unmanageable.
Rayman Origins. Rayman Origins is a 2D side-scrolling platformer, a la the original Rayman, though this time it is a lot faster. Rayman is running, zipping, jumping, and swinging all over the place in this game. It's great! Rayman Origins features a massive overhaul in terms of design and art style, and I think it looks fantastic. The game sports this new hand-drawn art style, with bright and vibrant colors, amazing animations, and fantastic redesigns of all the characters. The gameplay is amazing. From the very start, you get a lightning quick run and spin attack, so you never have to slow down to attack enemies. Once you get a feel for the controls, the game can be so mesmerizing to just watch. I don't typically just watch gameplay with no commentary or anything, but after I recorded all the gameplay for this game, I couldn't stop watching it. It's just too much fun to watch. On top of that, the game seamlessly combines set dressing and level design and the likes that I've honestly never seen from a game that was released before this one. One thing that stuck out to me is that there are no platforms or objects of any kind, excluding stuff like collectibles, of course, that are just floating around. Everything is supported by some sort of structure or being pushed around by wind. The soundtrack to Rayman Origins is phenomenal, featuring unique sounding instruments that are barely ever featured in video game soundtracks, like mouth harps and didgeridoos. It's so good! Rayman Origins is genuinely just a masterpiece of a game. If you haven't checked it out before, you gotta play it. It's awesome. And apparently everybody else agrees, giving the game 9 out of 10s and 5 stars across the board. This game was a smash hit in terms of reviews, and should have put Rayman back on top with the big dogs. But sadly, the game underperformed in terms of sales, only selling 50,000 copies in its first month. Despite the low sales, the game still managed to be profitable for Ubisoft, and with the really high reviews, they decided to give it one more try with another 2D platformer, Rayman Legends. Rayman Legends follows directly in Origins' footsteps, featuring the exact same style of gameplay and controls, and even recycling game mechanics that were featured in Origins. Despite this, I think Legends was overall a massive improvement in every aspect. The level design especially was on point in this one. Every level manages to feel unique from the one before it, and it never gets stale. This game also features these new music-themed levels where all the obstacles and enemies are synced up to the music, forcing you to time your button button presses to the rhythm in order to make your way through. I honestly come back to this game all the time just to replay these levels over and over and over again. It's so much fun. I wouldn't be opposed to an entire 2D platformer with levels like these. That would be awesome. This game also sports a new oil painty art style that I absolutely adore. I've actually seen quite a lot of discourse about this in the Rayman fandom, which I don't understand. I adore how this game looks and think it's a huge improvement on the already phenomenal visuals of Origins. Legends is as close to a perfect video game you will ever get. Its gameplay is amazing, its graphics are beautiful, and its soundtrack is phenomenal. The game received pretty much universal acclaim, 9s and 5s as you'd expect at this point, so naturally, the game didn't sell very well.
Whoa, didn't see that coming.
It outsold Origins, sure, but still not good enough to warrant another full game in the franchise. So, my dear viewers, this is where the legacy of Rayman has ended. Kinda, sorta. Not really, but pretty much, yeah, it has. With Rayman Origins and Legends not meeting sell expectations, Ubisoft stopped using their resources to make full-on AAA Rayman games on home consoles. But that doesn't mean mobile devices were out of the question. That's right, when Legends flopped, Rayman was pretty much permanently featured in mobile games. Games like Rayman Jungle Run, Fiesta Run, Adventures, and Mini. For what felt like an eternity, Rayman was trapped in this prison of mediocre mobile phone auto-runner games. It was so saddening to see this character I adored for the better part of my life, a character who starred in some of my personal favorite games, get reduced to auto-running side-scrollers. This entire experience made me genuinely resent Ubisoft, which sounds ridiculous when saying it out loud, but it's true. I couldn't stand these people anymore. From Rayman 3 to Origins, I was just indifferent because I had come to terms with the idea that there will never be any more Rayman games. But then Origins and Legends released, and that got my hopes up, thinking from now on we'd get regular installments, but nope, it's such a tease. You come out of nowhere with two phenomenal games starring a character you haven't used for years, only to then reduce him to mobile games? It doesn't make any sense. So from then on, my indifference turned into outright resentment. Anyway, any of y'all play Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle? Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is a turn-based strategy RPG that was created when Ubisoft and Nintendo decided to collaborate on some sort of Rabbid and Mario crossover. I can only assume this was an attempt to bring the Rabbids back into the limelight due to them dwindling in popularity in the US. And I gotta say, the game is fantastic. Really fun combat and puzzle solving, really interesting and unique style of progression, interesting and exciting characters to unlock, and really freaking difficult battles and boss fights that had me pulling my hair out. I want to refrain from going too in-depth as I would like to make a full video about this game in the future, but Mario Rabbids is a really good game that honestly came out to relatively low sales. Low sales as a result of people not even wanting to give the game a chance because the idea of a Mario and Rabbid crossover exclusively sounds terrible, and I can't blame people for thinking this. Everybody was super standoffish when the game was announced, and most people didn't even give it the time of day when it released. I mean, the only reason I bought it is because at the time there was like Mario Odyssey and no other Mario games, so I got it because I wanted more Mario games. But after the bulk of the reviews started rolling in, and they were all positive, people started to realize that maybe this game is pretty cool. After this, the reception of the game skyrocketed, becoming the best-selling third-party game on the Nintendo Switch by September of 2017. It got high review scores across the board, yada yada yada, you get it, with the bulk of the praises singling out how seamlessly the desperate worlds of Mario and the Rabbids mixed, creating a wonderfully unique world to explore. The game then went on to win the Best Strategy Game Award at the Game Awards 2017. After seeing the overwhelming amount of praise the game received, Ubisoft naturally didn't pass up the chance to bag some extra cash and squirted out a little DLC starring Donkey Kong, which kind of functioned as a little sequel, with its own weapons, characters, enemies, and boss fights. They then subsequently released a full-on sequel to Kingdom Battle, called Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Sparks of Hope, in all accounts, is a massive improvement on everything in Kingdom Battle. Much like Kingdom Battle, I don't want to go too in-depth because you know. But Sparks of Hope is, in all accounts, a nearly phenomenal game. More interactable combat and exploration, even more playable characters, the dumb party limitations are gone, and the game features a much more intriguing and threatening villain. Sparks of Hope released to critical acclaim from just about everybody who played it, touting the whimsical worlds, lovable characters, and more interesting gameplay. But, sadly, the game underperformed in Ubisoft's eyes, selling even less than Kingdom Battle. Despite underperforming though, Ubisoft planned on releasing releasing 3 separate DLCs over the course of the next year or so, scaling from simple updates to full-on additional worlds to explore. The first of which being called The Tower of Doom. This one was just a little enemy wave battle thingy with you making your way up this tower as the fights progressively get more difficult. The second one is The Last Spark Hunter, which follows the characters uncovering a place called the Melodic Gardens that has been shrouded in darkness. The characters then have to figure out what happened and put a stop to whatever is tormenting this place and its inhabitants. Both of these are cool and all, but the one that I was excited for, the entire reason I went on that whole tangent about 2 Mario Rabbid crossover games, the DLC that was planned to release on my birthday was...
Welcome to the Space Opera Network, the only TV studio this side of the galaxy that produces quality entertainment. Whether you're into Western movies, medieval times fantasies, or even pirate booties, we've got you fixed. Direct top-tier talents such as Rayman, only here at the Space Opera Network.
Rayman in the Phantom Show. That's right. You didn't hear me wrong. I did, in fact, say Rayman. For the first time in the past decade, Rayman has a starring role in a brand new video game. Well, kinda. Rayman in the Phantom Show follows Rayman, Rabbid Mario, and Rabbid Peach as they're invited to a movie studio to star in a brand new film directed by a returning villain from Kingdom Battle, the Phantom. When this DLC got announced, I genuinely pitched a fit. I was ecstatic to finally see Rayman in a new game, despite it not being his own game, but whatever. Originally, everybody assumed it would feature Rayman and Mario interacting, but it was soon revealed that Mario would not be featured as a character in any way. And at first, that did make me kind of upset, but then I had a thought. Sure, Mario and Rayman hanging out would be really cool, but with them marketing this game with Rayman himself, it means that they're relying entirely on Rayman as the main selling point, which I thought was pretty cool. I can't find any information on the sales of this specific DLC itself, but the reviews I've been able to find are overall fairly positive. Myself, on the other hand, I fell in love with it the second I pressed play. They had to have known how much we were hankering for some new Rayman stuff, because the very second you start playing the game, Rayman is front and center, and you're immediately thrown into the starting area. Oh my god. Alright, okay, just give me a second to ramble about how fantastic this DLC is, okay? Okay, so Rayman himself looks phenomenal. This is the first time he's been in 3D since one of the Rabbid games, and he looks so good! Looking at the concept art for this DLC, you can tell they tried their hardest to capture the true essence of what makes Rayman Rayman. There's so many little Easter eggs to the Rayman franchise, like artifacts being littered around the studio, or even such minor things like little animations being translated from other games he's featured in. We got the combat fatigues from Rayman 3 as his special attacks, he uses the guitar from Rayman Legends in one of his idle animations, and even the soundtrack is full of samples and references from other Rayman soundtracks. Call it nostalgia pandering all you want, but this time it doesn't really feel like it is to me. This DLC feels like it's supposed to be a celebration of Rayman's past, being a sort of amalgamation of his best parts. That's at least what this iteration of Rayman feels like to me. I adore how they used Rayman's past with the Rabbids here, having Rayman act unfriendly to Rabbid Mario and Rabbid Peach, only to grow more indifferent as the adventure progresses, until he finally accepts them as good pals. I'm definitely reading too far into this, but this DLC kind of feels like a sort of allegory for Rayman overcoming the monolith that is the Rabbids. I only started having this thought while listening to the Phantom's song making fun of Rayman. It features lines like,
"A flash in the pan, second fiddle to the Rabbids, Rayman,"
which makes it feel like the Phantom is supposed to be Ubisoft themselves trying to convince themselves and everybody else that nobody cares about Rayman anymore, only to then be proven wrong when Rayman comes out on top and defeats him, or when this very DLC came out to constant praise from die-hard Rayman fans. This probably wasn't intentional at all, but that's just how my stinky ape brain interpreted it. It's immensely clear so much love and care was put into this. I keep trying to call it a game, because it feels like a full game to me. It's immensely clear so much love and care was put into this DLC. The team did such a fantastic job bringing Rayman back into the spotlight for the first time in such a long time. After Rayman in the Phantom Show came out to pretty much unanimous praise, Ubisoft kinda went radio silent on the whole subject of a new Rayman game or even continuing the Mario Rabbid series. From here, most of what went on in the community is just talking about the DLC, theorizing about what's next for the franchise, and wondering if anything would come of it all. Until, on September 27th, 2023, Netflix released a trailer for a brand new adult animated action drama series called Captain Laserhawk: A Blood Dragon Remix. This trailer seemed fairly normal. The show looked pretty decent for the most part. Not my thing, but wait. Was that Rayman? Yeah, it was! But why though? Why was Rayman randomly dropped in this trailer for a seemingly unrelated show? Well, as it turns out, Captain Laserhawk is actually an officially licensed Ubisoft series that features references and Easter eggs from many different IPs, including Rayman. Rayman's sudden and unacknowledged appearance here floored fans. They immediately started theorizing about Rayman's role in the show. Will he be a hero? Will he be a villain? Will he have a neutral stance on the situations in the show? Nobody could figure it out. I honestly just assumed he was only gonna have like a couple of lines every other episode, or honestly even less than that. I was expecting him to mostly be relegated for exposition, seeing as how he's a newscaster in the show, so I just assumed he would deliver exposition on his talk show. But boy was I wrong. Rayman serves an extremely vital role in the plot of this series. I'm not gonna do a full-on analysis of the show itself. I'm just gonna be talking about the parts that are focused on Rayman because, well, that's the whole point of this video. Though I will say the show is only kinda decent for what it is. I don't really care for shows like this, and if Rayman wasn't in it, I wouldn't have checked it out at all. But, I mean, it had my attention for a little bit, so that's probably worth something. It honestly just feels like a worse version of Cyberpunk Edge Runners. So, though, do not get it twisted. This is not a family show. Far from it. Sure, Rayman is a main character, but this is not the same Rayman we've come to know and love. So in this show, Rayman is an alien refugee from Dimension X. He was sent to the city of Eden through a mishap that caused these evil Rabbid monsters to run amok and terrorize the city. After the JJJreact stops the infestation of Rabbids, Rayman is then shunned by everyone and blamed for the said infestation. After something that's never really disclosed or talked about, Rayman proves to everyone that he's different, and he becomes a famous celebrity, getting his own late-night talk show, children's cartoon, and feature film. Rayman's reputation is flying high until an incident caused by one of the main characters releases the crazy Rabbid monsters again. The JJJreact once again deal with it and land an interview on Rayman's talk show. The leader of the JJJreact, Red, then reveals that he's a bigot against aliens from Dimension X, causing Rayman to start cussing Red out on live television. This then leads into Rayman getting fired and replaced with some sort of clone of him, so then Rayman sets out to discover the truth behind Eden and expose them for their wrongdoings. If you're judging the show purely off of what people on Twitter are talking about, you'd be missing out on a lot of context. Twitter has somehow spun the way Rayman's presented in this show as character assassination, with him being some sort of low-life scum getting mistreated by everyone, despite that being nowhere near close to the truth. With the image of Rayman eating sushi off of this anthropomorphic cow's behind being the main culprit for this misinformation. This single screenshot from a less than 30-second clip of Rayman reacting to him getting replaced has been spun to make this show seem like Ubisoft cementing their hatred of this character, when in reality this show kind of feels, to me at least, like it's Ubisoft acknowledging their mistreatment of this character and saying they'll either do better with him in the future or just leave him alone for good, letting his legacy end on a high note. The way Rayman's portrayed here isn't so much like BoJack Horseman as people have been comparing it to. If anything, it feels a lot more like Conker from Conker's Bad Fur Day, in the sense that it's a goofy cartoon character swearing and getting drunk. But even that's a pretty superficial comparison. In the show, Rayman isn't a scumbag or self-centered. He's honestly a really I about to say cringy. For some reason I read cringy in the script. In the show, Rayman isn't a scumbag or self-centered. He's honestly a really caring guy who's just oblivious to the harm he's causing. And as soon as he learns about the trauma he's caused, he's riddled with guilt and promises he's gonna change his ways, which then leads him on the path of revealing the truth behind Eden. With this new iteration of Rayman sparking conversations of all sorts, Rayman is arguably at his peak in terms of people actually talking about him. He might not have any new games in recent years, and probably won't get any for a lifetime ahead, but people are talking about him more than they ever have in the past decade. There's constant fan art, video essays, and even fan games and projects like Rayman Redemption or Rayman Alive. The fanbase is extremely active right now, conversating about what a new Rayman game would be like, theorizing about whether they'll continue the franchise or not. Fellow Rayman fans and I love the franchise because of the wacky characters, intriguing world, completely nonsensical and inconsistent lore, and super fun and replayable games. Despite the whole Rabbids kerfuffle that occurred after the Sparks of Hope DLC and Captain Laserhawk, it's very evident that the team that works on Rayman stuff is extremely passionate about this character and his world. And because of all these things occurring so closely to one another, I think it'd be pretty cool if Rayman got a brand new game and became one of the greats once again. Huh. I'm pretty proud of myself. I managed to ramble about Rayman for a whole 30 minutes without ever once mentioning or playing that stupid Sex Bomb song. Oh wait.
Tell me, baby, you satellite, infrared to see me move through the night. I'm gonna fire, shoot me right. I'm gonna like the way you fight. Sex bomb, you're a sex bomb.